Now, House lawmakers are back, and they have a lot coming up. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise is going to join us now. Majority Leader Scalise, it has been a while since President Trump dished out one of his signature nicknames. One of your members, Marjorie Taylor Greene, just got two, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Marjorie Taylor Brown, because the president says green grass turns brown when it begins to rot. What's going on with these two?
Well, you can see that they've had some disagreements, and, President Trump from time to time has disagreements with people, and he's not shy to talk about it. And you've seen over time he's made up with some people, too. But, one of the things President Trump does is, he tells people what he really thinks, but he also talks about what it's going to take to get this country back on track. And President Trump has done phenomenal things to address the problems that he inherited when Joe Biden was president. We saw so many problems around the world. We had high inflation, high interest rates, high energy costs here at home. And President Trump started day one to fix those problems. And he's not going to slow down. And I know he has disagreements even with some of his friends along the way, but he's not going to be deterred. He is working tirelessly. You know it. You see him in the White House. He'll come from a trip overseas. I saw him the day after he came from the Middle East, signing historic peace agreements in the Middle East, and the next day he's at the White House, continuing to do great things here at home. So this is a president that doesn't rest, doesn't stop fighting for the American people.
And the president has told us that he's mad. Marjorie Taylor Greene voted with Democrats to try to force a vote about releasing more Epstein files. Why do you think it is that your Democratic colleagues were so quiet about Jeffrey Epstein for the entire length of the Biden presidency?
Well, it's a point of hypocrisy that we've brought up many times, Peter. We actually brought a motion for unanimous consent the other day to bring up all the Epstein files. And guess who objected on the House floor? It was Democrats. And so, this idea that the Democrats won it, they hid the Epstein files for 4 years. In fact, some of the things you saw leaked just the other day were things that we House Republicans got out through Jamie Comer's Oversight Committee. We had the estate of Epstein finally subpoenaed, and we released a lot of that data. One of the things it showed, Peter, was a Democrat member of Congress texting with Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing, trying to get Epstein's advice for how to ask questions during a hearing. I don't hear the mainstream media talking about that. That just came out like 2 days ago, and it's because of Republican oversight on those Epstein files that the Democrats sat on for 4 years.
A different subject, but something that everybody watching wants, that would be free money. The White House says $2,000 checks could be on the way. The money would come from tariffs and not the budget. They just need one thing first.
Well, it's something that will require legislation. But if you look at how much tariff revenue has been coming in, then there would actually be enough room to cover those checks and not go into the rest of the budget. So yeah, there would be enough money to pay for the $2,000 checks.
So before the $2,000 checks, they just need your permission in Congress. Are we going to see a vote for these checks?
Well, there's a robust debate over what's going to happen with the tariff revenue. One of the things, Peter, is getting an actual quantification of it, exactly how much money has come in from tariffs. A lot of us don't think it's going to be long-term because you see President Trump reaching new trade agreements so that we have lower tariffs or ultimately zero tariffs is the goal, because you got a fair trade with countries that never used to treat us fairly. So many countries took advantage of us. President Trump finally has those countries treating us fairly. So one point of a lot of discussion was to use that tariff revenue to reduce the deficit. And I think everybody would agree reducing the deficit lowers interest rates, it lowers inflation, taking all of that money that Washington borrows off the table and no longer borrowing hundreds of billions of dollars in this case would actually be good for the entire economy and put more money in the pockets of families who are struggling in terms of lower inflation and lower interest rates for people that want to go buy a home, buy a new home, first-time home buyers. All of those things are things that we have been actively debating in Congress.
And there is another idea to try to put money back in people's pockets. Some of your members are kicking around legislation that would do what we just talked to Dr. Oz about. It would stop sending money to insurance companies. It would start sending money to patients, to people, to spend how they wish. How quickly might we see that?
Yeah, real soon. And look, Dr. Oz touched on a lot of important things that we're working with the Trump administration on. And, if you go back to, and Dr. Oz alluded to this, when we were moving the working families tax cut through Congress. We put a provision in that bill called cost sharing reductions, which is, I'll translate it in English. It was scored to lower premiums for families, health care premiums by double digits, over 12% lower premiums in health care. It passed the House. It was in the bill, passed the House, and it was Senate Democrats who fought to get that removed because Senate Democrats do not want premiums to go down. They want to force everybody into Obamacare. What was called, by the way, in law, the Affordable Care Act. Does anybody really think it's affordable? I mean, my gosh, it's been 80% higher premiums on families since they passed that law known as Obamacare. And then they try to mask it with hundreds of billions of dollars in bailouts, not to families, but to insurance companies that are seeing record profits. We should not be continuing to bail out insurance companies and Obamacare. We should give families better options to lower care by things like cost share reductions, association health plans, which would work really well to have small businesses and their employees get more options to lower premiums. Health savings accounts, Peter, are highly effective at lowering costs in health care. PBM reform, we passed that through the House and it died in the Senate under Chuck Schumer. All of those are ideas that are on the table and more that we're bringing back, and we're discussing those. We discussed them during the shutdown. We're going to be bringing more legislation in the weeks ahead, all of them proven to lower premiums and give families more options to control their health care, not to force them into Obamacare at higher costs.
And Leader Scalise, really quick before you go, I have to ask about this. You're such a big LSU Tigers fan. They fired the football coach, Brian Kelly. The governor is so mad at LSU's athletic director, who's now gone, for giving Kelly a $54 million golden parachute that he gave this update about the next coach.
I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach.
So who should Donald Trump select as the new LSU football coach?
Look, I was at the game yesterday. By the way, we beat the Arkansas Razorbacks. It was a great competitive game. I'm floating Nick Saban out there. Look, he coached LSU, won us a national title. He and especially Miss Terry really love Baton Rouge. Don't discount that option. You can say Scalise told it to you first.
All right, Saban to the Tigers. Heard it here. That's a big headline. Thank you.
Great being with you, Peter.
All right.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.